Have you ever thought about getting your MBA? Well, the University of Louisville offers the only MBA with a distilled spirits focus, so you can graduate in under 2 years with both your master's and a certificate in the distilled spirits business at no extra time or cost to you. This unbeatable combination is going to prepare you to achieve greater success through deepened understanding of the business side of the spirits industry, like things like marketing and finance and operations. So this is also 100% online, so you can access the courses at any time and anywhere. So what are you waiting for? All that's required is a bachelor's degree. Go to ufl.me/Bourbon Pursuit. The Meltdown Ice Press is an engineering marvel, and it turns ice into a work of art by using metal conduction to create a perfect sphere every single time. And it's 100% made in the US. But ice balls provide 24% less surface area, which means it's a slower ice melt and less drink dilution. So go check it out now at meltdownice.com. If you're looking to upgrade your sleep, do it today with a Bear mattress. You're guaranteed to get the proper back support, pressure relief, and comfort, or your money back. Every Bear mattress is proudly made in the USA and comes with 2 free pillows. Try the top-rated Bear mattress risk-free for 100 nights. You can learn more at bearmattress.com/bourbon. That's BEAR mattress.com/bourbon.
We're not really big on titles, and things change so much around here. Most people that see me around here, they think I'm the guy that mows the grass, which I was 2 years ago.
Like, here's the weed eater.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, dude, weed eater's over there.
This is episode 290 of Bourbon Pursuit, the podcast featuring news, reviews, and interviews with people making the bourbon whiskey industry happen. I'm one of your hosts, Kenny Coleman, and before we start today's podcast talking to Dr. Pat Heist from Wilderness Trail, here's your weekly bourbon news update. Well, some of those predictions for 2021 are already coming to light, and Fred Minnick's kind of had it all going on the right direction here, because there is a major distillery that has been acquired. MGP has announced a definitive merger to acquire Luxco, representing a deal worth $475 million that's comprised of both equal parts of cash and stock. Now, most of us know by now that MGP is that powerhouse distillery in Lawrenceburg, Indiana that supplies a good percentage of product for source brands on the market, in addition to brands that contract distill through them. And Luxco has a distillery called Lux Row, based in Bardstown, Kentucky. And Luxco also has famous brands such as Ezra Brooks, Rebel Yell, Davis County, Everclear, El Meher Tequila, and also around 100 other smaller brands. Now, this transaction is anticipated to be completed during the first half of 2021, of course, subject to regulatory approvals and customary closing conditions. You're going to get our full take on this acquisition on the next Bourbon Community Roundtable, which will be recorded on next Monday, February 1st. So follow us on all the social media channels and join our community on Patreon to make sure you can get the link to join us live. 72 U.S. and European associations representing a wide range of industries have sent a letter to President Joe Biden and European Commission President Ursula von der Leyen, urging the immediate suspension of tariffs on sectors unrelated to the ongoing transatlantic trade disputes. The group stated that we believe the immediate suspension of these tariffs is a necessary and fundamental action which will provide an economic stimulus at a time when it's needed most. Of course, we've talked about this time and time again, so let's hope it's a move in the right direction. Now moving on to bourbon release news. Woodford Reserve has released its annual expression of Double Oaked Bourbon. This product will be available at the Woodford Reserve Distillery starting at 10 a.m. on Wednesday, January 27th of 2021, and can only be purchased in person. Customers may purchase up to 4 375 ml bottles, and Double Oaked is proofed at Woodford Standard 90.4, with a suggested retail price of $50 for that 375 ml bottle. In honor of the recent inauguration of the first female vice president of the United States, DC-based distillers Republic Restoratives has released Madam. It's a blend of 7-year-old bourbon and 5-year-old rye that features a portrait of Kamala Harris on each bottle. This new expression is a collaboration with Lex Marie, a visual artist from the DC area who painted the portrait of Vice President Harris that will be on each bottle of Madam. Pre-orders for Madam are going on now for home delivery in DC and curbside pickup at Republic Restoratives Distillery. Bottles are available on their own for $89 or paired with their I'm Speaking Purpose Rye for $155. Now for us at Pursuit Spirits, things are moving along much faster than we ever expected. Over 70% of Pursuit United has been sold across all states and sealbox.com, leaving only a few hundred bottles remaining. And we can't say thank you enough for everybody that is out there supporting it, and a lot of the honest reviews that are coming from our friends over at Breaking Bourbon, Sippin' Corn, The Mash and Drum, and many others. I promise y'all, we do not pay them to say all these nice things, but believe me, try it for yourself and you'll know. We also need to let you know that we have Pursuit Series single barrels that are still available, including an Applejack brandy finished bourbon from Starlight Distillery. And you can get all the information for everything, plus the links to buy at pursuitspirits.com. So, what can you really say about today's guest? Dr. Pat Heist blew our minds back on episode 121, going deep on yeast. And if you haven't listened to that episode yet, please take a break, pause, and go listen to that one first before starting this. I promise it's going to be worth your time. Pat has one of the most unique backgrounds in bourbon, and he's even had the opportunity to do a TED Talk, which is just amazing for our industry. Pat is a great friend of the show, and we always enjoy having him drop a knowledge bomb in the comments during our community roundtables. So what are you in the mood for? Bourbon, rye, rum, or maybe a special finished whiskey? You can get all of these from Barrel Bourbon, and you can even order online. Go to barrelbourbon.com to see what's available. Enjoyed today's episode? Now here's Fred Minnick with Above the Char.
I'm Fred Minnick, and this is Above the Char. This week's idea comes from John Young. He writes me on fredminnick.com. Can you address potential blind bias? You and many other professionals taste so much whiskey, you are bound to identify house flavors or qualities characteristic of certain distilleries. For example, I think Wild Turkey Expressions tend to be very bold and strong in flavor. Not proof, but maybe a little higher in alcohols. Everyone loves Buffalo Trace products. Can the best tasters not identify those products? Or are all Kentucky whiskeys processed so similar that tasters must pick out nuances to identify the best products? That is a really great question, John. And I'll tell you, as a taster, I do my very best, my absolute very best to not have bias going into a blind tasting. I try to not have music on. I try not to have any, I try to be as neutral as I possibly can. And I don't focus on what it is. If you focus on what it is, you may be focusing on, the wrong thing instead of trying to figure out if you like one glass better than the other. And yes, it is true that sometimes I do know what it is. I'll taste it and I'll know automatically. And it's inevitable. It's going to happen with all the people who taste for a living. And the only thing I can tell you is you have to do your best to remove that bias, whatever you may have from it. And I'll tell you, one of the best examples I can give you was in 2013 when we were judging at the San Francisco World Spirits Competition. One of the products we were tasting, we were myself and another friend, Steve Bill, who's fighting pancreatic cancer right now. Steve, I love you. We looked at each other and we were kind of I think that might be Pappy. It might be Pappy 15-year-old. And sure enough, it was, and it won. But we picked it because it was the best whiskey we tasted, not because it was Pappy 15-year-old. So and by the way, we both hated the hype around Pappy in 2013. So imagine how we feel about it now. So that is one of the things you have to do. You have to remove any kind of brand bias. You have to remove all of that stuff the best you possibly can. But at the end of the day, you're only human, and you're going to pick things that are sometimes your preference. I love the taste of grains. I love the taste of grains. Kenny loves the taste of sweet oak. I hate the taste of sweet oak. He hates the taste of grains. So we are two tasters on completely different spectrums. And when we taste together, it's fascinating because he's like, I can't believe you like that. And I'm like, I can't believe you like that. So it's a fun back and forth. But at the end of the day, you do the best you can. You try to remove the biases the best you can. And that's all you can hope for. After all, we're only human. But there is a mechanical tongue moving its way up the ranks in the tasting circles. And like all things, tasters will probably be replaced by robots pretty soon. And that's this week's Above the Char. Hey, if you're like John and you have an idea for Above the Char, make sure you hit me up on fredminnick.com. That's fredminnick.com. As you can see, I read the ones I really, really like. Until next week, cheers.
And we're back with an episode of Bourbon Pursuit, the official podcast of Bourbon. And this time, Kenny and Ryan traveling out to Danville. This is only the, first time that I've actually been to this facility. Second or third time for you now?
Second for me. I came down last year. I think it was Bourbon Beyond with the community roundtable guys, and we did a pick.
That's right. I couldn't be there for it. I was traveling, and
I like tore my calf muscle before I came here, and I was like hobbling around, like just all pitiful and whatnot. But yeah, I'm excited to be back. I mean, hell, there's already more warehouses here than the last time I was here last year. So
oh no,
it's like things are going well.
There's a lot of good things that we'll be able to talk about. Everything that's happening with Wilderness Trail, and I'm really excited to actually bring our guest back on. Last time we had Pat Heist on, Dr. Pat Heist. It was actually all done online, and I mean, it was a yeast fermentation schooling for like an hour. It was one of the best podcasts that we've ever had.
Kenny's eyes glossed over. He's like, I don't know what the hell y'all are talking about.
Oh, there was so much going on.
I've had so many people in the industry, they would text me like, hey, you got Pat's info? I need a question about, this or that or whatever's going in my tank from that episode. So I think people liked it.
It's got some good action.
Yeah. There's a lot of stuff that came out of that one. So here it is, voice. Let's go ahead and introduce him. So of course we have Dr. Pat Heist. I don't know. I probably should have asked this before we started. Like, what's your title that you go by here now at Wilderness Trail?
I mean, we're not really big on titles, and things change so much around here. I mean, most people that see me around here, they think I'm the guy that mows the grass, which I was 2 years ago.
Like, here's the weed eater.
Yeah, exactly. Hey, dude, weed eater's over there. I'm sitting there trying to sign their bottle, But yeah, we don't really do titles around here.
All right. So
very nice.
Just Pat Heist of Wilderness Trail then.
There you
go. That's easy enough. So Pat, we're doing something new this season. We kind of start this with a random icebreaker. And so here's one we got for you. So would you rather travel back in time to meet your ancestors or to the future to meet your descendants?
Oh, wow.
Well, that's a damn good question. I would say travel to the future to meet my descendants.
Mm-hmm. Not scared of any sort of like, oh gosh, like what's going to happen here? Like they end up in jail. Like we can fix this now. Like, because you feel like you're going to go back to the moment in time and you can like right some wrongs or something like that.
Well, hopefully they'll be doing good.
Yeah.
If the population of the earth isn't extinct by then.
Yeah.
That's really what I would want to know. Am I going to still be alive in 300 years? Like, are they ever going to figure out how to like insert new, brains and organs? And because I want to stick around way longer than 100
You got some grass to mow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Yep. It's a place to go to hell and ham. I wasn't here mowing.
Yeah. Hopefully still your whiskey around in 300 years. I mean, it's funny. Like you think about it, if you try and travel to 300 years, like what if you just show up and it's just black? You just look around and it's just darkness. Because who knows? It could be over.
Yeah. Wait, I want to change my mind. I'm going to go back.
Yeah. Dang, Kenny, this is a deep question. It's like you've been listening to Joe Rogan or something.
Well, hey,
stuff he asked.
You're up next. What would you rather do?
Ah, man, probably ancestors. Just because I don't want to think about dying. I don't know. I think going into the future, that means I'm dead and gone. And I'd like to look back and maybe see where I came from and see why I am the way I am and why I'm so screwed up.
Fill in all those bubbles in your family tree that are like, where'd this gene come from?
All the way back to Howardstown, Kentucky to see like what the hell just happened to make me here sitting with you all. So I think that'd be cool, but future would be cool too. But I don't know. Death kind of freaks me out. So
yeah, it's understandable. It's understandable. I think I might be with Pat. I might travel to the future on this one, only because A, I've always just you want to see what the future's like, but B, you think about the past and you're like, okay, well, this is all kind of like what made me, but I'll never get to see what I make, right? And maybe that's even a question we could even start leading in with bourbon is, we start talking to people like, like Jimmy and Eddie Russell and the Shapiro family and everything like that. You're putting down whiskey right now for generations to come. And some of this whiskey, like you're never be able to taste it at some point in your life. Like Kind of talk about that.
Thanks. I
Well,
guess that means I'm old.
Kenny just
Well,
Kenny just said you're gonna die in the
no.
next.
So let's think about it. So like when we
How old's your oldest whiskey? 6, 7 years. You're gone, man.
Okay, let's rewind this one back a little bit. So we talked to like Freddie Johnson. He's like, oh, we're putting down whiskey right now for Pappy 23 and whatever, And I'm sure that you all have like aspirations of like, yeah, we want to have like a 20-year-old whiskey one day, and then let's fast forward 20 years from now, and you're still putting down whiskey. That'll be 20 years, and so that whiskey,
well, as well as a lot of those bottles will likely survive, well into the future. So
Right.
there'll definitely be whiskey, Wilderness Trail whiskey in bottles.
It'll be dusty future Wilderness Trails.
Exactly, future Dusties.
You get some sort of recipe you're cranking on there for future Dusty recipes.
Yeah. We got a few little infinity barrels going on.
Oh, okay, well, tell us about it a little bit. What's kind of got kind of cooking up over here?
Yeah, well, I mean, there are different things that we're planning on doing. And some of those things we were actually planning on doing back the last time I talked to you guys. So we haven't got around to doing a lot of the things that we want to do.
It's been a few years now, I think, that's you've been on. So yeah.
Yeah, several years, like 3 or 4 years.
3, 2, 3. Yeah, I don't know.
I remember.
I lose track.
I think
That's why I need to go back in the past because I don't remember much of it.
Yeah, because we had you and Shane both on pretty close back to back when Wilderness Trail was like really starting to come online and getting sort of bottles to the market and stuff like that. Yeah.
So I guess one of the most exciting things, and this may not sound very exciting, but just getting into older stuff. I mean, just even considering the mash bills that we make, our wheated bourbon, our rye bourbon, and our rye whiskey, just hitting 3 years, 4 years. We'll be into 7-year-old in October. So just kind of getting more age on it. We just released a 6-year recently. Until then we had only done a bottle and bond that it was 4 to 5 years old. And so there's 6 years out on the shelf now. But, we're really looking forward to getting to that 10 and 12 year. If you look at some of the most popular wheated bourbons like Weller 12, I want to have Wilderness Trail 12 sitting right there with it, And so that's some excitement that may or may not be very exciting.
I think it's pretty exciting.
Yeah. Well, just the fact we're able to hold on to those barrels, that
you're like,
long.
I really want to dump in and make some money now, but I got to hang on to it.
That's right. So, there's long-term planning involved with doing that, I mean, we got people beating our door down wanting to do barrel picks and different things, and we've got the barrels, but if you never let it get old, you'll never have old stuff.
Hence the reason why we're here today. We're actually choosing a barrel here today. So
how do you go about that? I guess determining is there a formula? Like, all right, we got X percent devoted to aging, or we got X percent allocated towards we're going to do now, and then we have towards this brand.
So what I did is get a business partner that's real good at math, and he controls a lot of the spreadsheets and things. I take a peek every now and then.
Yeah,
but Shane
when you're taking
really,
a break from mowing.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah. I come in to put sunscreen on or something. They let me have it, or if they let me in the door.
Yeah,
you got grass on you, dude. Time to go back out.
Yeah.
So, but Shane, he's a mastermind of things like that. I mean,
forecasting.
Forecasting. Not only all the intricacies of this business. I mean, you look at. I mean, we're purchasing millions of bushels of grain. I mean, you don't just go to a farmer and say, "Hey, man, I need 1 million bushels."
Yeah.
Or
you
I need. Or
you
I
go
need
to them like,
3 million.
I'll just take your farm. Is that okay?
Well, exactly. And so the planning, I mean, you don't just go to Independence Stave and say, "Hey, I need 70,000 barrels this year." There's long term.
It's such a weird business because it's so capital intensive. Because you're like, all right, I got to make money now, but I also have to make money in the future, and I have to it's not like those go hand in hand. So it's very difficult to make it all work.
What's another reason to go to the future? If all my future ancestors are living in mansions or something, I'll know we hit it. And if they're all destitute and in debtor's prison, I'll know, oh, God. Time to get in different business.
Shit hit the fan.
Like, which descendant did I leave this to that I need to write that wrong at some point?
Yeah, tornado knocked down the...
But there is a lot of, talking about the grain and even the process for making the bourbon, sourcing the barrels, keeping the bottling facility up there in fresh bottles and corks and labels, those kind of things. Stillage management. I mean, we generate 100,000 gallons of stillage here every day, 7 days a week. So that's what the byproduct that we give away to cattle farmers. Well, that's something that has to be managed. It's probably one of the hardest jobs here on site is getting rid of that stillage.
Yeah.
Like I said, that's 15 truckloads a day going out of here. We got our own trucks. We're trying to give this stuff away. And there's different dynamics depending on the summer or the winter, because wintertime, there ain't no grass on the field, so the cattle ain't playing ball at their field. But anyway, it's more easy to get rid of stillage in the wintertime than it is in the summertime. We've got farmers who, it's like, oh, where'd he go this week? That's 15,000 gallons we were counting on him for. Oh, he's up at the, Cattlemen's Association meeting in New Jersey.
Chase him down. Take this stillage, man.
Yeah, exactly.
Come get your stillage.
Yeah,
I'd been like, you just lost part of your allocation, buddy. It's all about communication.
That's right. Well, and you think, well, can't you hide a little bit here and a little bit there? It's like, dude, we'd be 1 million gallons in after 10 days. So it's.
We just ain't got the room for that.
Yeah. That's right. But, just all the different things that people don't realize besides the capital intensity of, building these rick houses. I mean, we're planning on building a 24,000 barrel rick house, completing one every 100 days from now for the next 3 years. So we're putting 11 more across the street. In addition to that, we just finished one. We got the footer done for one over here. We got 11 more going across the street. And that'll get us like 3.5 years.
Wow.
So
yeah, I always tell people, last time I came, I think y'all are making just as much as like wild turkey is these days now, or more maybe. And they're always amazed. They're like, really? They make that much? Talk about like what you're all up to producing now and whatnot.
Well, we're up to 220 barrels a day. So, and that's 7 days a week. So we're operating 3 shifts, 24 hours a day. So now we do have planned shutdowns and things like that. But if I'm not mistaken, again, I'd defer to Shane for this question, but I think we're on schedule to do 65,000 barrels.
Wow.
This year.
We said that in unison because that's pretty impressive.
Yeah, that's incredible.
Yeah. Well, and you see the guys putting them away every day, and they're probably out there saying something else.
But, like, damn it.
Yeah.
Will they ever slow down?
That's right.
I mean, that kind of goes back to the thing with Shane about forecasting, because it's like, I hardly even see you all forecasting. You're just like putting the pedal down to the floor and saying, let's just keep cranking out as much as we can.
Yeah. A lot of a question we get from a lot of our, we work with other distilleries on their yeast business. So we work with hundreds of distilleries. And so a lot of, especially the newer ones, are like asking this question of, how much bourbon should I make? And it's like, if you look at what we're doing, we're putting the chips right in the middle of the table.
As much as you can.
As much as we can possibly afford. That's why I dress like a homeless person. I don't have a damn dime to my name, but
you should have told us. We could have at least brought you a Bourbon Pursuit t-shirt.
You could have brought me a sandwich or something. Or half eaten one.
Bottle of water or something.
Yeah. But it's crazy, And we have just said, hammer down, let's get her done here.
I was about to say, I mean, at this rate, I mean, so you said you basically have this plan for the next 3 years. At the 3-year mark, you're like, okay, now we can start tailoring off a little bit. Like, what is the pipeline of the number of barrels that you want to have that you can say, like, okay, we don't need to be running 7 days a week, we'll say 350 because you got to have some sort of shutdown. So what is that magic number? Do you all know what it is yet?
Well, I mean, if you look at our capacity, which is probably slightly north of 70,000 barrels a year, and the only reason we won't hit that in 2020 is because we ran part of the year at 5 days a week with an occasional weekend shift kicking in.
It's nice to give people a break for the holidays.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and and now that we've kind of filled out our team, we've got floaters, people who are trained in all different areas. So if we got somebody who gets sick or somebody that needs some time, we've got it kind of covered. Whereas, a long time ago, when we first started, which wasn't too damn long ago, it was less than 7 years ago. I mean, there'd be days where I'd be cooking, Shane would be cooking, we'd be distilling, or he'd be distilling. Especially if we had one of our people who, was gone that day. It was never a matter of, well, we just won't distill today.
Right.
It's usually like, shit, man, somebody's got to do it. So roll up your sleeves and get out there and
Somebody's
get
got
it
to
done.
pick up the slack.
Yeah,
Mhm.
gotta stop mowing, get in there, and start cooking.
Got to slow the mower down.
Yeah.
It's going to take me a while.
Something tells you there's gonna be a lot of mowing jokes this episode here.
Well, and we used to be at a different location. I don't know if either of you
I don't think we
went
weren't
to
at
where
the-
we were. The original Firm Solutions building, which we still do a lot of packaging of different, yeast and different fermentation adjuncts that we sell. That's still a lot of that's done over at that building, but that's where we had our distillery, our pot still, and we actually stored barrels over there for a while, and then realized we have to build a storage facility. So we bought this place really I don't think when we bought it, we had intended on even using this home. We were kind of happy that we were able to, because we're in the industrial park here.
Yeah.
And this home was up on a chopping block. Somebody could have bought this property and tore this home down. So we were kind of happy that we were able to keep the home. And then we built the barrel warehouse out here. That was the main reason the 2,200 barrel warehouse, which was going to be our forever house back then, 300 barrels a year, 5 years, that left
Now
a
you're
little wiggle
10Xing
room.
it.
Yeah. Now we're filling a 20,000 barrel house every 90 to 100 days. So yeah, it's a little different world.
Whose idea was it to say let's go ahead and really, as you said, put all the chips in? Because if the idea originally was to have our 300 barrel warehouse, and that was probably for us, that'd be like, hey, that's fun stuff, right? We can manage this. Like, whose idea was it to say, like, we need to like get a couple million and let's really go at this thing?
It's really amazing how organically everything has occurred. And Shane and I, we own Firm Solutions and Wilderness Trail. We're not encumbered by, a board of directors. We are the board of directors.
Yeah,
We go up to
that's
Dairy
nice.
Queen, get a blizzard, and by the time we got back, we've had a board meeting, made important decisions.
2 ayes or 2 nays.
Yeah. So, we'd be chilling out, grilling or something, and be like, you know what, let's do this. And I think both of us have always been really good at noticing good opportunities, and without much, you kind of create a little thought experiment in your head of like, okay, I see the money that's going to take to complete this project. Well, what's the upside? And without even breaking out a calculator, it's like, oh man, that's just a smart decision.
Yeah.
So a lot of times we're just making decisions very smoothly and transitioning. Our size of the distillery has been, I think one of the big things for us, which isn't any big secret, is we do a good bit of contract manufacturing right now for other places. And so there was a need for that. All the big guys for the most part, used to do a lot of contract production. And now it's like, hey, no way, bourbon's hot right now. So, the big brands are busy expanding their operations to make even more for themselves. So all of a sudden, there was this glut of people who used to get their stuff made at other places. And there's also kind of been a little bit of a exodus from anything that's not Kentucky.
Mhm.
If it says Indiana on it, MGP makes, we're well aware of their, historic role as contract producers. But we, where we deal with a lot of people who have contract production, there's something about Indiana. They make some of the best juice on the planet, no doubt about it. But just having that Kentucky on the bottle also kind of sent some people our way, and just, it just.
Yeah, so you're in huge favor of the 1 year and a day rule, where it says, because that's the rule is it has to age here a year and a day to be called Kentucky bourbon, right?
Yeah.
And so for someone contract distilling out a different state, they have to produce here, age it a year and a day for it to be called Kentucky, and that's very advantageous for someone who's got a distillery here in the state.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, the other side of that is, we store for the people we make it for. Most often people who want thousands of barrels, let's say, they might not even have the capability of taking those barrels outside of storage even.
But I think that's probably the next big thing that we're all realizing, is that there's actually a storage problem.
Yeah, there is a big storage problem right now. And so for us to take on that contract production, we have to also supply storage, which has kind of become another business for us. If we finish a 20,000 barrel house, we know we're going to fill it in 3 or 4 months, but we might sneak 5,000 or 6,000 barrels in there. Somebody who's just like, man, I just got to have a place to put these for 3 or 4 months. We can kind of manage that and maximize the profitability of those buildings. So, which is a whole nother thing to manage, not only building them and paying for building them, but, where in the hell's the barrels? You got 5 barrels with us? Where are they?
Are they? How deep are they in these ricks? You got to move stuff out. You got to move. Trucks, loading trucks, logistic wise. It's a lot of stuff going on.
Yeah. Well, that's where Baker and the spreadsheets come back into play.
Yeah.
Again, and we got great team out there. Management team that we direct, but they, well, the team we got here, man, going from the people that put the barrels away to the people cooking and fermenting and distilling. We just got a class operation. Our maintenance team, everybody, laboratory. It's a pretty great situation.
So one thing that you had mentioned about, just Kentucky and the word Kentucky on it, I want to talk a little bit about your TedX talk that you had, because you had a pretty funny joke that you started opening that up with. I kind of want you to let the listeners hear about that too.
Let's see.
About, you can make bourbon in anywhere.
Oh yeah. You can. That's actually a direct quote from somebody else famous in the industry, but I can't remember who in the heck it was. It might have been Parker Beam. I think he actually said it in maybe Neat or one of those bourbon shows.
Yeah.
Or Bourbon Tucky or one of those. But he said that if you want to, you can make bourbon anywhere in the United States, but if you want to sell it, better damn well be made in Kentucky. So, yeah. Which there's a lot of great distilleries outside of Kentucky. And actually, when I went to the TED Talk, there was a distillery that I visited in Fallon, Nevada called Frey Ranch.
Oh, yes.
They sent us the bottle.
Yeah.
Okay.
Gosh, fantastic stuff.
Yeah. Did you get the bourbon or the rye?
The bourbon, the 4-grain bourbon, right?
Yeah.
It's 4-grain bourbon. Yep.
Yeah.
And they have 100% rye I just got a bottle the other day. But I brought 2 cases of the bourbon back with me.
Yeah.
Bottles, man.
It's a nice bottle.
Yeah,
you can take that to a pawn shop.
Oh, yeah. I can't bring myself to throw them away.
Oh, I know. It's so much gold on that thing.
The damn
weighs a ton.
The cork caps, you'd use it as a lug nut on a tractor.
Yeah, a cotter pin or something. Yeah.
But that's a great example of a distillery that's not in Kentucky that's making dang good bourbon.
Yeah. What if they were here? How popular would they be?
I think that's the one question that we always see is, whether
if that came here,
say like Frey's Ranch was making whiskey in Kentucky, how big a difference would that make in their appeal or popularity?
Well, the thing about them is there's not too many distilleries that I know of in Kentucky that are growing all their own grains.
Yeah.
They're growing all their own grains on their own ranch right there at the distillery. So I don't even know if that situation could exist in Kentucky. The amount of acreage that it would take to do that. They're sitting on like 2,000 acres, 1,600 acres. It says it on the bottle. But, that's just a really unique situation. Now, one thing, which was the premise of my TED Talk, was talking about climate and barrel aging. And out there, they have super arid, they don't have much humidity in the air. Mm-hmm. So they've actually got regulated humidity in their barrel rooms.
And so what does that do? Good, bad, or?
Well, if you don't have a certain amount of humidity, you'll have an astronomical amount of evaporative loss. So you may not have anything left after 4 or 5 years.
So basically, they just are putting everything in like a wine fridge, if you will, to try to cool it down.
Well, I don't know that the warehouses are temperature regulated because they have good temperature.
Yeah, because
the humidity
out there, because they're about tall. It can be 40 at night and then 90 during the day.
Yeah,
it's crazy.
Yep, and it's just real low humidity.
Yeah.
So
does that age it faster? So because at 4 years, that Frey's Ranch was really good.
Well, and they're putting it in 53-gallon barrels, and they had a combination of rick houses as well as I don't know if it was. I think it was palletized, but. That's just an example of a great distillery that's not in Kentucky.
All right.
Yeah.
Let's quit talking about somebody else's whiskey. We'll kind of backtrack to you a little bit. Now, there is another question I want to talk to you about, like just the TED Talk, because you've kind of like now moved to an echelon. It's basically, I think, like you and Marion Eves. Like, I don't know if there's any other people within the whiskey industry or bourbon industry, whiskey probably, but bourbon industry in general that we all know of that have given a TED Talk. Like, kind of talk about.
Yeah, I'm super jealous.
Like, I've always thought, like how awesome would it be to get on stage and do a TED Talk? Talk about the preparation, the audience, the feel. Like, what was that moment like? Attention private pick enthusiasts, whiskey geek retailers, and aspiring bourbon brand owners. Go to krogmans.com today to get started with one of the most unique barrel selections in the business, where everything it's catered to you. Dream up any label or idea that you want and they can make it happen. So if you're tired of settling for awkward stickers on the sides of bottles, Krogman's Barrel Picks lets you have total control over your design from start to finish. With low minimums and quick turnaround times, Krogman's can take your pick to the retailer of your choice ASAP. Go to krogmans.com. That's KROGMANS.com to get started. Spirits of French Lick exploded onto the distilling scene early in 2016 as Indiana's largest double pot still distillery. They employ old world sentiment with new world attitudes, delivering the finest handcrafted bottle and bond bourbons to an audience eager for an alternative to the big guys. And their distiller, Alan Bishop, uses historic Hoosier yeast strains, alternative grains, and 53-gallon number 2 char barrels to bring you spirits with unparalleled quality and depth of flavor. You can find all Spirits of French Lick's products and new releases on sealbox.com. But don't just take Fred Minnick's word for it. Find out for yourself. Check out spiritsoffrenchlick.com and follow them on Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter. And remember, always drink responsibly. I've always thought, like how awesome would it be to get on stage and do a TED Talk? Talk about the preparation, the audience, the feel. Like, what was that moment like?
Yeah. So, I'm a seasoned lecturer. I mean, I've given thousands of lectures when I was a medical school professor. I've done a lot of conferences and I get asked to speak at a lot of different things. But the TED Talk was probably the most challenging talk that I've ever had to prepare for. Not only the fact that I'm a huge procrastinator and you actually had to hey, 4 months before your TED Talk, we're going to need you to run through it once for us.
4 months.
And it's like,
wow.
or however long it was. It might have been 2 months, but it was a lot of time. And normally I would have been writing it the night before.
On the plane,
Yeah,
plane
exactly.
right there.
Yeah, I'm out at Fry Ranch, what are you doing over there? I'm making a TED Talk tomorrow. But, I had a coach that is actually a really big bourbon fan who helped me along, throughout the time, where I would just to help, because it's a 10-minute talk, and to tell as much information. I mean, I can give a 16-hour talk on bourbon way easier than I can give a 10-minute talk.
Yeah.
Because there are just so many things that you tend to want to add. I don't want to leave that out. I don't want to leave that out. But you have to sculpt it to where, it's a 10-minute talk, it's impactful, and and you get it done in the time limit, and not make an ass out of yourself and it's going to go on YouTube
up there and all.
Yeah, because those things get a lot of views. And so I was nervous for several reasons, but I get nervous about things like that sometimes, but I can't think of one time, not trying to brag here, but it just always works out. I don't know, maybe I just talk a lot.
Rise to the occasion.
Yeah, exactly. But I was feeling pretty good about it. But it was in front of an audience of about 2,200, which was a little intimidating. And there was I was the second to the last speaker of the day. And so had already been some really great talks leading up to mine. And then the guy who closed after me was a comedian. So it was like,
Oh, you don't really want to follow him.
No. Well, he was after me. So, but there was some really good talks that day, and it turned out great. I finished it. I was happy with it. Outside at the very, very beginning of it. It's like, my name's Pat Heist, and I co-own a company called I got so many damn companies, it's hard to remember which one I'm here for. Oh, that's right. It's Wilderness Trail.
Oh man, that's awesome. So some other recent news that has happened is you all had filled up your 100,000th barrel.
Wow. Congratulations.
You're on a trajectory. I mean, you've already talked about, pedal the metal and everything like that. You're going to celebrate every 100,000th, or you're like, okay, next time we'll celebrate at the millions. Like, what's your next achievement there?
If you look at the fact we've been distilling now for right at about 7 years, and we filled our 50,000th barrel 1 year ago. So our 100,000th barrel was just in the last couple of weeks.
Wow.
So, we're kind of booking along and you can kind of see just based on that milestone, how many barrels we produced 50,000 barrels, in 12 months. When we used to produce 300 in a whole year. So, and we'll be coming up on our 200,000 fairly quick, within, a year from now. So, just a little beyond.
I was going to say, you can't have more plans to expand, can you?
No. I think
On the distillation
we're
side?
good on capacity.
Okay.
It's just, right now, and who knows what the future looks like on contract production. I mean, right now, every bit of extra capacity that we have is taken through, a certain part of 2021, in addition to what we're making for ourselves, which I'm not exactly sure. Again, I have to go back to Baker's notes, but
bring the spreadsheets out.
I think we're putting back close to 20,000 barrels for Wilderness Trail this year.
Wow. So talk about where is Wilderness Trail? What's the state of the union with Wilderness Trail, like that brand, and where it states, where can people get it, all that stuff?
Yep. Kentucky's our biggest state, but we're in.
Go figure.
Yeah, go figure that. But I think we're in 26 states now.
Wow.
But some of the big markets we've just gotten into, probably 2 or 3 months before COVID hit, I was doing a lot of traveling out on the West Coast, supporting, in California. We just got into Washington, Arizona, Nevada. I was actually when I did my TED talk, I was doing tastings during the day. I got a couple hours to spare, I'll go do a tasting at a liquor store or visit a distillery. Try to trump up some yeast business. No, okay, now I gotta go. I gotta get back to do my TED talk. I try to
look at you always selling.
Yeah. Well, personally,
you hit it from all angles.
Yeah, personally, after a 8 or 10 hour day, I'm ready for about 8 hours hanging out at a bar. So, I usually get in pretty long days in terms of impact.
Work hard, play hard.
That's right. Yeah, but it's all work,
Right.
It all counts as work, it's all brand ambassador type stuff. So
it's all expensible at that point, right? So
you can say that. Yeah. But if you're the one paying for it, it's kind of like, let's see, I'm going to get a steak tonight because I don't feel real good. Okay, that's just double.
That's gotta be awesome though. You go to California, like, because you're so fun to be around. You're enjoyable, and your character. You mow the grass and whatnot. You go. And what's the reception like?
Well, I'll tell you one thing. Shane and I both. I mean, I feel like we're easy. It's easy for us to make friends. I mean, we're happy-go-lucky guys. I mean, we enjoy. We like having fun. We like drinking bourbon. So it's not like we're trying to sell some story. We're experts in that. We're known as the science guys of bourbon, and a lot of times that reputation precedes us. So before somebody meets us, if they know anything about bourbon, they already know what our situation is in terms of our firm solutions business. But another thing, where we do business with so many different distilleries in so many different states, those guys are like, oh man, what kind of whiskey are they going to have? Because they taught us everything we know about distilling or fermenting or whatever. And so we have a lot of ambassadors who work at other distilleries in all these different states who are, they're our ambassadors, and we don't pay them a dime. In fact, they do business with us.
Right.
So, but we have had a really good reception. I was traveling through Georgia not too long ago, and I stopped at I actually stopped at several liquor stores. And a lot of times when they don't have your stuff, okay, well, this is an opportunity to introduce myself. And if they have it, then I just want to play mystery shopper. What's this stuff over here? Never saw that before. And then start asking questions about bourbon production, let them dig a deep hole. Okay. But anyhow, I was going through Georgia, and I finally came on a store that had our stuff. And they had like barrel picks, and they had, one of each of our 3 different expressions. And I was buying some bottles for a friend that lived in the area, and I got 4 bottles of Wilderness, and I took it up, and I had a face mask on. I actually had my Slayer face mask on at the time. A little bit of my beard poking out from the bottom, which actually looks like chest hairs. It's kind of weird. But anyhow, this guy, the guy was ringing me up, and he said, oh, I see you got the good stuff there, and he was a big Wilderness fan. And like I said, I was just going to play mystery shopper.
Yeah.
Ask him some questions and things. And then some other dude spotted me out with my face mask on. He's like, that's Dr. Pat right there. And I was like, holy shit, man. I thought I was going to get killed or something. But next thing you know, we're out front of the liquor store getting our pictures made and signing stuff. It was like, man, this is crazy,
That's really awesome. You're turning into a bourbon celebrity now.
Well, ever since I
is.
did Bourbon Pursuit,
Yeah.
that time it just was all
That's what happened. We put you on the map. That's how. That's
caught fire.
yeah. We'll go ahead.
We're
We'll
waiting
wait
for that check.
We'll get our check in the mail soon.
Yeah.
So with the firm solutions business, I'm guessing that, you probably don't dedicate like, oh, halftime here, halftime there. It's just all kind of like comes in when it comes in and stuff like that. But for yourself, when you are, I'm trying to think of like the variability. You talked to a bunch of different distilleries, and you have probably like over 100 different kinds of yeast or something like that you can offer.
About
like,
9,000.
Okay.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit.
We only sell about 15 of those, though.
Okay, I was about to say, I was like, never been good at counting, jelly beans in a jar, but I was definitely shooting low on that one. So if there's 15 different yeast varieties, and it comes time for you to start creating your own whiskey, how do you choose, like, okay, I want this yeast variety, I want this mash bill, I want corn from this farmer? Like, how did you dial down the variables to say, like, this is what we can do consistently? Or did you say, like, I don't care about consistency?
Well, anybody that's ever seen any of my lectures has heard the quote, "Consistency is the mark of a pro," which I think that might have even been Parker Beam that said that too. But anyhow, consistency is what it's all about. I mean, if we're talking about creating our wheated mash recipe, 64 corn, 24 wheat, 12% malted barley, it needs to be consistent. And so, I mean, we don't really do a lot of messing around up here in the bottling facility. Whenever we do a single barrel, it's like, there's a barrel that's 4 or 5 years old, take it up there and bottle it. I mean, we're tasting it and stuff, but we're seeing really good consistency, and it's because we pay close attention to consistency. The grains that we get are almost all from a local farm here in Boyle County. So one farmer, one area of land that the grain is grown on. The process that we use, we got firm solutions right here on site, so we're running their legs off every day with different lab tests. If I want to get starch test in the grain, I want moisture testing. I want to run liquid chromatography on fermentation at least 3 times throughout the course of the first few days. I want to know what the yeast population is. What's the viability of that population? What percentage of the yeast are actively reproducing at any given time? We look at a lot of different factors: sugar consumption, alcohol production, organic acid production, and that just gets us up to the end of fermentation. Then you run that through the still, and we've got gas chromatography that we use to look at basically heads, tails, hearts, components, high boiling chemicals, low boiling chemicals. We're doing some research right now with University of Miami, Ohio, and they're incorporating mass spectroscopy, and they have already identified 1,700 different chemicals in bourbon. So our lab is collecting, like, anytime we have a sample that's got a little bit of an off flavor, we'll make a note of that, then we'll collect the sample of that and we'll send it to them, and they'll run it and compared to a control. So you run one that doesn't have that flavor. Here's your 1,700 chemicals. Now I want to run the one that's got that flavor. Now I'll use computer software to subtract out everything that's common between them, and it'll be like, bam, right there.
There's that one compound.
Yeah.
Throwing it off.
Yeah. And sometimes we'll link that to a contaminating organism that was in the fermenter. So then we've got the microbiology going on in the lab where they're culturing organisms. So if we get a certain flavor profile, it's like, man, what the hell is doing that? And why was it so different than everything else? Then we go back to the bacteria, which we got probably 50,000 different bacteria. And sometimes you can isolate a bacterium in pure culture, and you smell that plate, and there's the damn exact chemical. And then you can grow that bacteria in a solution, and you'll make that chemical. So, I mean, we sell bacteria to some distilleries. They put bacteria in the dang process because it helps flavor.
Yeah. You're like 1,000 steps ahead of any other distillery, starting off, just because you have all these resources, around you. And so how instrumental is that for you guys?
Well, I mean, and again, this is a team effort. Back to when you were saying, how did we formulate the mash bills? Shane, he did a lot of that initial mash bill calculations based on some things that, not only what is our favorite bourbon. I mean, to me, if you're asking the question of what kind of bourbon should I make, it's like, well, what kind do you like?
Yeah.
And then just figure out what the mash recipe for that is. And that's a really easy way to not recreate the wheel. But, just having a team to do that.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you all aren't messing around. I mean, just with the process that you went through, I don't think we've ever had a guest that said like, oh yeah, we hit all these check boxes. I mean, is that something that you see common that you've just basically explained to us, or is that something that's very unique to you all in saying that, yeah, we're checking literally every single step of this process before it even enters the barrel?
Yeah, we do, I would say, a lot more than most distilleries. Now, any of the bigger distilleries, based on our experience, they're going to have things like liquid chromatography. They're looking at a lot of different chemicals in there. But I think the thing that sets us apart is the microbiology, having the organisms out of there. I don't know of any beverage alcohol distillery that currently employs the type of microbiology that we do to complement that chemical analysis. So, and we've got that data from, hundreds of other distilleries. I mean, that 50,000 bacteria out there, probably 100 of them are from Wilderness Trail, and the other, 50,000 or whatever are from all the other distilleries, including some of the most famous old Scotch distilleries. I mean, you go start, plan on recreating some of these old distilleries whiskeys, and you almost certainly would have to incorporate some of the contaminants in there.
Are some of your competitors like, damn it, Pat, you've been using us all these years to get to where you are, like you got all this information and all this stuff, like the conflict of interest type thing?
He basically like sucked out their DNA
right.
and like built his own robot out of it. Yeah.
Yep, pretty much. But actually, we thought about that whenever we started the distillery. And initially we were like, well, they don't care about us. We're just making a barrel a day.
We're only going to make 300 barrels,
Yeah, exactly. But we've actually had an easier time selling. I mean, our business has transitioned over from like fuel alcohol. When we first started, we were looking at fuel alcohol distilleries because their fermenters are 900,000 gallons apiece. So when you're talking about feeding those kind of customers with yeast, I mean, we've got some fuel alcohol customers that you're talking about 10 tons a month.
Wow.
Type of situation. So that's the elephant in the room in terms of who you want to go after as a yeast supplier. But when we started Wilderness Trail, all of a sudden we started getting a lot more credibility, especially now that our whiskeys are out. It's like, well, how do I know your yeast is any good? It's like, well, hell, try the damn whiskey there.
Yeah.
Help
sells itself.
Yeah. And they're like, which one was that? And it's like, well, I'll tell you right now, FP1 or 927. We got numbers for all of our different yeast that we market. So it's been a big deal for Wilderness Trail and Firm Solutions. We get a lot of business on Firm Solutions from people visiting here. They're visiting because they're going to the Bourbon Trail, and then they realize, oh, you guys sell brewers yeast, you sell distillers yeast or nutrients or whatever, and the next thing you know, they're our customers. And then they're telling their friends, man, these people I buy my whiskey from, I'm also getting the yeast from. So it's like you just kind of create
You're just double dipping now.
That's man. That's what it's all about, though.
Oh, yeah.
It's like a little firestorm.
Mm-hmm. You don't have to moonlight anymore. They just turned into one business.
Mm-hmm.
So you talk about all the bacteria that comes into it. I want to think about what about like when we used to be able to go to like Maker's Mark and you like dip your fingers in the fermentation tank. How much more yeast is being added by 40 people that keep dipping their fingers in the tank while they're tasting the mash that's going?
Well, if you have a healthy fermentation, you should have a population of yeast somewhere around 150 million cells per milliliter. So basically,
that's about what I was about to say about 100 million.
Yeah.
Yeah.
We were talking about on the way down.
Yeah, exactly. I thought it was 300. Yeah. It can go as high as 600 million, but the distiller strains on open top fermenters, just looking across different distilleries and also the data we collect here, we're looking at, it depends on the yeast strain. Some of them's 90, some of them 175, some of them might go over 200, but right in that 150 million cells per milliliter, about the end of your finger, that's a shitload of yeast cells. So if you consider that your finger may or may not even have any yeast on it, unless you've been sticking your finger in multiple fermenters in the course of a day.
It's like being a Willy Wonka thing. Just like a little bit of here, a little bit there.
Yeah. It's kind of like if you threw one dude into the middle of all the orcs in the battle on whatever.
It's a competition thing. Those yeast aren't going to allow that to get established.
No. And a lot of the organisms that live on your skin just don't do well in a fermentation environment.
Yeah. So even like bacteria, whatever, viruses, whatever.
The type that are on your skin. Now, the type that occur naturally in grain and on fruit and on about anything you would make alcohol from, that's where organisms that grow well in those environments. As fruit is sitting there on the ground decaying, there's yeast in there producing alcohol. I mean, you've seen videos of monkeys that were like drunk because they're eating fruit that was already half fermented.
Yeah.
The yeast is already there. So it just takes a perfect storm of different things before it's going to be that dramatic there, but it's already there. So fingers are different than I'd be more worried about somebody squeezing a peach in my fermenter than sticking their finger in there. Just never happened.
Brought this from Georgia. Just kind of squeeze it.
Yeah, a little peach fermentation.
Yeah.
So I kind of have one last question I want to talk about just to really rack your brain here because you know this stuff because there's a lot of people out there and they gravitate towards old bourbons. We kind of talk about like a little dusty thing going on and people are like, oh, I wish somebody could recreate Stitzel-Weller. I mean, with all the bacteria that you have and fermentation with solutions and, the yeast and everything like that, like you have a lot of components from a lot of different places. I mean, even we talked about with Castle and Key, they're saying like, oh, we found something in a pipe somewhere and tried digging out and tried to, figuring out what that is. I'm sure a much more scientific way to say it. But what is
found in the pipes?
Yeah, well, is there really a way that you can recreate like the whiskeys that used to come out in like the 70s and 80s and stuff like that? I mean, do you really think that's a possible thing?
Well, for sure, and we do a lot of that kind of work for people. That's one of the other benefits of working closely with the lab is, hey, I got this 100-year-old bourbon here. Can you decipher it? Well, I'm going to need a sample of it.
I need to taste this first.
Yeah, exactly. I need about 1/100 of a milliliter to run on my machine in there, and I need about half a liter to do some other testing. But, a lot of times, even though we look at things like, the proof, the proof itself will tell you something. If you're tasting something and don't really know what the proof is, you don't have a frame of reference, So there's simple things like that. There are tests like, can we detect wheat gluten? And that would indicate it has wheat in it versus if there's none of that in there, it may indicate that it's not a wheat. But some of the best information that we get is actually the organoleptic testing, the smelling and the tasting. We put people, myself, Shane, my brother Mike out in the distillery. He's a chef, gourmet chef. He's got a really good palate on him. Macaulay, he's got a really good palate. We got a lot of people here that's got good palates. And so we just lay the samples out every now and then. And when we have those kind of things, we can get very valuable information just off of tasting and smelling it. But also we have, Jarrett Smith, he's a historian. He specializes in like Appalachian history and things and a lot of bourbon. And you can go in the historic documents. You go over here to the Getz Museum in Bardstown and there's mash bills hanging on the wall from.
Really?
Yeah. And you look at some of those
old. I wondered what was in there.
Yeah, it's actually
I've been
pretty
driving by
cool.
it my whole life.
Yeah, but we had one. I can't remember the name of the brand, but it was an old brand that used to be made at what is now Maker's Mark, and the family brought in a bottle, and the best information we got was from a billboard that was hanging up in the Getz Museum.
Wow. So I think too with Dusty's, the oxygen is in a bottle for a while. Can you recreate that some oxygen levels in a to where it can kind of pull out those flavors as well?
Well,
or is that impossible?
It's just so hard to do that. Instead of trying to do 1,000 things to try to recreate a bourbon,
right?
Pick an easy method and see if it doesn't make a damn good bourbon, and then you don't have to do all these other steps. And our philosophy is always keep things as simple as they can possibly be.
Keep it simple, stupid.
Keep it simple, stupid. And when we look at things like selecting grain and grain quality and yeast strains and all those kind of things, well, how about how much electricity am I using out here? How much steam am I having to generate to heat my mash cookers up? So we start tweaking all that kind of stuff down to where, not only are we making great tasting whiskey, but we're also saving every dime we can on utilities and, being more sustainable. And, same thing goes for the fact we're getting all of our grains locally. I mean, they're not having a semi-truck those grains up to Louisville. You know, that's a big deal for them. Hopefully they might shave off a couple ducats.
Yeah, there you go. A little discount there.
Yeah, so, you know, there's a lot of those kind of things as well.
Well, awesome. Well, Pat, I want to say thank you again for coming on the show today. I mean, you're a wealth of knowledge, and I feel like we can just like throw random questions at you of just like, we were wondering if you could do this, and you're like, well, we actually probably can. So it's really cool to kind of, again, pull your mind and kind of get some of those thoughts. And, you know, I want to say thank you again for also like tuning into a bunch of our live streams and stuff like that. I know
he pops in.
Yeah, he pops in, and then everybody's like, oh, it's Pat. Pat's here. So
more publicity.
That's right.
He's always selling.
Always.
Yeah, he's on the live stream. He's like, anybody need any yeast?
got 8 hours of work, 8 hours of selling. You know, sell that work.
Posting on like Bourbon R. Have you ever heard of this brand?
Bourbon R.
All right. So you can always check out Pat. You know, he's over here at Wilderness Trail, and really good stuff, really great whiskey. We're excited to actually go and pick out a barrel today that, of course, it'll be available to our Patreon community, which by the time this probably comes out, it's already sold out, which I mean, it means we'll have to come back again.
Yep. They'll have to invite us again.
So we sort of do get to go to the future.
We
do.
Pretty much.
Yeah.
Pretty much.
We pretty much know it's going to sell out.
Pretty much know it's going to sell out.
All the information I gave today will be obsolete by January 2020.
Yep. It'll all change.
But Pat, thank you again for coming on. I really do appreciate it. And if you like the show, want to support the show, leave us a review, patreon.com/Bourbon Pursuit, and follow us wherever you're on social media. We're everywhere. So,
yep.
With that, cheers, everybody, and we'll see you all next week.